knowledge that we learn. Here is first of all, we need to understand the philosophy of the church. What is our philosophy? What is the philosophy in church? And here is, and then there's a philosophies, and then pragmatists, and realists, and idealists, and traditional, and maybe more, but here's a basic idea about. So when you are doing the ministry, and maybe you can question, what's a pragmatist is responsive. It's really practical. And then when I put this idea on education and philosophy, and it's gonna be responsive. And then what about the realist? Realist is kind of think about what's a reality and then idea, try to get the balance. What about the idealist? Is it right? They already set their idea of what's the standard, idea and standard ideal setting, right? So principles. And then what's the traditional, and then maybe even though society change, and then even though there's a new approaches there, but try to keep going one according with the traditional way. That is your basic philosophies, and then questions, and then what about criteria for those starting ministry? And if you do in that way, and then will people come? Because you're always thinking about the practical, pragmatics, and then what about realists? Then does it fit our goal, right? And what about the idealist? Is it a biblical mandate? Is it based on the biblical knowledge? And but there's a realist, and then they don't even know about they don't even know about the God, but still the biblical mean that they try to get the balance between biblical standard and the reality, but still think about own God. And what about the traditional way? And it is lost the treasure, and we want to keep the treasure. There is a basic criteria about questioning in me. So I'm doing the basic idea about the ministry foundations. So maybe you can follow me. And here is another goal of ministries, and the pragmatist, the one is that are there more people is coming? Their goal is really trying to attract people. Is it practical or not? Is it pragmatic or ideal? Sometimes it's too much ideal and people really realistic, and they're not going to come to, right? But ideal is that regardless of it, there is a need, but sometimes you need to compromise. But still, idealist, no, we are not going to compromise, and it's the right people. It's the right people, right? And what about realists to come and get the balance between the and people are growing. They passionate. Think about it's the right people and the more people, but they want to kind of a balance, and what Bible said it, and what is the realistic way, and try to get a balance. But their goal is people are growing, and then traditional is try to support people to be faithful, right? That's the traditional way of goal, and then criteria for the evaluation of evaluation ministry, and then it's a growing numerically, and how they evaluate the ministry doing good or not, and that is by numbers, but this one is a spiritual fruit. It's hard to measure, but still maybe like this, and then people, the congregation come to church more, communication, participate, Bible study more than people like this and spiritually growing. Maybe it shows that kind of church activity shows that people have more desires, right? And then idealists say, regardless of its truth. And then that is one of the idealist criteria to evaluate. And then it's a ritual like, we keep the tradition this way, like maybe Catholic Church, and they already set a ritual and they follow that one, and then instead allowing with our ritual. That's a criteria. What about criteria the end of the ministry? And then they say is there a more active way, right? They try to the end of the ministry, and what about how can people get more involved and more other activity, attractive? How can we attract people like this? And then realists say that has it lost the charters, and then think about and how they keep lost. And then what about the idealists said that are no leaders available. Leaders are really available. And then there is a kind of the end of the ministry, and the ministry never ends. The traditional said until Jesus Christ coming back, go and go and go. Yeah, that is a kind of philosophy of a church. And then maybe if you see the not exactly the same, but still pragmatist is like nowadays, maybe falls into a church, kind of mega church who really attract the people, right? And maybe a church who really shows a kind of prosperities. Yeah, like this, and then maybe depends on church situation, but maybe most churches fall into the realist, but still there is a lot of ideal churches there. They try to keep the biblical principles and try to get along with what Bible said. There is a basic philosophy that we consider. What about the paradigms of ministry? What kind of paradigm we're going to use? And then think about philosophy. And then think about paradigms. So there is one of the textbooks, I got this one. There's 4 types of the paradigms. So spiritual daycare, and then fitness center, and cathedral or mesh. And that is a kind of describing the paradigms of churches. Not we didn't say that, but still we try to categorize and so what paradigm church are using. There's a spiritual daycare. We said that really focus on the self-observed and problem solving and meet the fountain needs. Right? Fountain needs, so what they need, and then provide their needs. So there's a spiritual daycare. We call that it's one of our paradigms. And then what about fitness center? If you go to fitness center and then you got to exercise, right? And then the therapists are really focused on the one another's togetherness, and then they really focus on the spiritual growth, and then they desire the kind of development spiritually, right? And that's when you go to gym and then you exercise to develop the muscles and like this, and then that's a basic focus. And what about cathedral? Cathedral is kind of a big church, like if you go to cathedral in like Catholic churches, and then like that, and then really people get together and worship together, right? And then that's really focus on the worship, and then really they follow the formal liturgies. That's a cathedral styles. What about Mass style? Mass style is like it's a kind of they try to reach out to people and really focus on the evangelism and missions, and then really focus on the teamwork. That is a Mass style and cathedral and what is this? I forgot. Let me was then mobile. They say yeah. Let me. So that is acronym of mobile, sorry, acronym. Yeah, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. That means that, you know the Mobile Army Surgical, and then there's from the army, and then there's a mobile moving, go to and reach out to people, reach and then to serve, surgical work, and then there's a machine in the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. Yeah, get out of the acronym. So, that one is really reach out to people, right? Lost and missions and like this. And then basic idea about what is the attitude about it. Spiritual daycare is a serving and serving citations and then schools of school of doctrine and was a manufacturing companies like that, and then just think about what they need and what they try to kind of provide kind of attitude, and then one of a fitness center responsible for one another, and then expect to give and mutual trust and love because they work together, right? And then what about cathedral? It's a big church, you go and worship, and then reverence for God, and high respect for God, and self-reflection. And then because they are really centered worship. But what about Mass style and proclaiming redemption and seeking the lost and bring the lost in? That is a basic attitude. What about the motivation? Motivation try to provide the need, right, for belonging and reassurance, and really the groups are really similar. People are gathered together, right? Spiritual carers. And then what about fitness center? Fitness center is kind of they try to how can we belong together, because they really thinking of focus on the togetherness, and how can we participate, and then how can we develop the leadership like this, and then they have developed the stage like this, and then what about the cathedral style? paradigm. So responsible to God and God's attribution, emphasis on the symbols, and then it should really focus on God. And then what about motivation? Love of God, love for people, and what? Pursue the eternity. And what about values? There is values there. And then what's the spiritual kind of paradigm is always being right and success-oriented and solutions to problem. There is a basic misspelling. There is a basic attitude, right? There's a misspelling is there. And then what about fitness center? Always, how can we get together? How can we get deeper relationship with others? And how can we use our gifts? There's a value of our fitness center. What about cathedrals paradigm? So think about really focus on God and worship, and then they really value God's holiness, and then really practice the humilities, and then that's a kind of a privatism, and then it's really individual and between the relationship between I and God. Really, they give them space each other. What about measure style? And they think about always go out and try to help, right? And there's a justice and mercy and faith and salvation and stewardship and reconciliation. And how can we help others? And how can we reach out to others? Like this, basic values of this. And then maybe there's more paradigms, but still there's examples, depends on the church directions, and there's a philosophy. It's there, and what's the paradigm they are using, and that's kind of describing the current churches, paradigms. And then it's not exactly the same, but we cannot say, but it's a kind of a name, the spiritual daycare and fitness center, and then cathedral style and mesh styles. And this church is a really mission-oriented church, and this church really think about spiritual daycare center, and then people coming after school, like a senior daycare, like a daycare center, when they come to try to provide what they need. And then what a fitness center, and then because you wanna be healthy and go gym and exercise, and like a big kind of examples. And cathedral style is like big churches there, and the Catholic churches there. And then if you go to Mexico and other Latin countries, and then you can see the big cathedral in the center of the city. Like this, they get it together like this. So maybe one of the kind of your paradigms maybe church use for their ministry. There's examples. Here is major ministry paradigm changes in American churches. I don't know whether it's interesting. That's why here is a basic, we already called in different paradigms, but here is examples that how American churches have changed their paradigms. And then here is around the 50s, the 80s and 2000s, how they changed their paradigm. Around, it's really 50s, and then they really focus on the historic churches, right? So really believer-centered and really mission. They are think about missions, right? Really think about missions, and then they sending out the missionaries, and then but still there is really traditional, but who is a leader? Church pastors and preachers, and then um, community is like really, at the time, it's extended family. It's not an individualistic family, right? Still there, and then really they use the education to equip the congregation. There's around the 50s and churches about 30 years later, the church a little bit changes like 80s like a contemporary church. It's not a little bit not a traditional and contemporary church, and they have a different worship style. And then think about, I don't know whether you attending church and then like I'm growing up in the rural area, and then around the 70s, and then really they have, I grew up in Presbyterian church, so worship is already set. There's orders and then follow order, and then I came to college like 80s, and then I see different style of worship because I joined the Christian club at college, and then they don't have worship like I used to. And then like there's a worship leader, praise leader coming out and lead the praise, and then pastor coming out, and not pastor, and then preacher coming out and preach, and then opening and pray. That's it. It's a little simple. And there's contemporary. If you go to church, and then they don't follow the organs and choirs, but instead they have a church worship band, right? Like this. So now around the 80s, churches and churches really focus on the seeker centered, not the believer centered, and then who need I want to know Jesus Christ, but people are coming and they try to be ready for them, right? And then so theological mission is a seeker. It's not a missionary, and they go out instead of really focus on the seekers. And then critics of labor, they are consumers. Consumer means that think about when you as a consumer, and when you just buy, right, and then just go leave like this, to come to church or whatever they need and just leave like that. And then there's a word of critic, consumer. That's why we say consumerism at church nowadays, and then people are really they will not get what they want. If they don't like it, and they protest or sometimes complain, right? So when we buy something and I don't like it, and then maybe return it, and maybe call and comment like this, that's one of the ways it is consumerism. And then 80s, and one of the critics from outside, and then leaders think about churches are to organize like a business kind of setting, right? And then how can we develop the church, and then like a business CEO in the business companies like this, and still, and but getting they are really getting smaller, and then like in 50s, and they really have a what? 50s they have small groups. It's extended family, but 80s is like really focus on the small groups, not the extended families, and then how they equipping the people, and like it's 50s, and like education is already played important roles, but 80s like seminars, and what they need, they open the seminar and provide, right? Let me see. Yes. And what about 2000s nowadays, and then church, a missionary church, it means that traditional church and contemporary church and missionary church mean there's why people come to church and try to people equip the people and send out. So that's why people going out and maybe evangelize and show the image of God and serve like this in the really missionary churches. So and focus is really really not the single center, then there is not specific centers. Why? So we gotta go out, try to send out the people, right? And the theology of the missions is international. It's not just inside of the church. But just think about in America nowadays, how many people are coming to America. So we consider a lot of different ethnicities, right, from different countries. I came from Korea, some people came from the China and Japan and other countries, maybe one of the countries in Middle East, right? Like this. And so theology of mission is to go beyond the culture and internationals. So there is critics of labor in the war, and they say the too traditional and consumerism and blah. They just experiment because there is no specific and guideline and maybe different, right? Really, missionary church is different. That's why, and they said experimental, and then leaders, church leaders are not see you anymore, and how can we reach out to people? So we consider a lot of pastors involved in missions, right? And missionaries. And sometimes missionary people serve in other countries, they come back and do ministry like this. And then communities like nowadays, multi-ethnic churches, how we get along with others. Not just extended family, not the small groups, how can we all together live together for the kingdom of God? And then that is this is a coaching is a little bit different, and then think about and specifically, and then people need some people need something, and then coach it one by one like this, a little bit different, right? And that is examples one of changing paradigms in America, right? Maybe you can see your own countries churches, how they changed their paradigm in ministry. Maybe you can see. That's one of the examples that I want to show with you. And here is we need some education, we need some theory to teach the kids and adults and youth. And there is some theory that we need to consider because especially for the Sunday school education, and a lot of different theories are out there. I mean that they try to understand the kids, and they try to adult education, and then so we gotta learn about how they study people, how they learn about and basic ideas, and then that's why. And then here is some theory about how they develop their cognition, right? This is from the psychology, but it's really helpful to understand human beings' development. And here is Piaget's stage of the cognitive development theory and how they developed the cognition. Is he divided 0 to 2 years old, and 2 years to 7 years old, and 7 years to 11 years old, and older. And then they he called each stage and sensory motor is the first stage, and another next stage is the pre-operational stage, and then concrete operational stage, and formal operation stage. There is a basic station, right? Stage is there, and how they develop in each stage. So this is more kind of explanations, and what happened at this stage is coordination sense with moral response, sensory curiosity about the world, language useful, demanding, and they will start learning language though, right? They know how to communicate. So maybe usually depends on there is a difference between among the kids, but infant, but still around 1 and 2 years old, and they starting speaking, right? And they develop the object permanence is developed. It means that here is for this step, and sometimes people that and we hide the phone and they don't have, it's gone, but still they remember that is there. That's the object permanence, right? That's the basic how they developed their visions, how they develop the language, and that's such a really important thing. So we gotta, this one is kind of how can you help the little kids, right? Little babies, 1 to 2 years old, and then what about 2 to 7, so pre-operational, and then they at this level, they starting developing the symbolic thinking. And mean that there is some abstract things there, right? It's not a visual things or everything. Maybe behind something is there, and then use the proper syntax and grammar to express the concept. This stage like they learning language, but they made a lot of mistakes in speaking sentence, right? Sometimes the pronunciation is a little bit weird, but maybe they learned speaking English in the tense is kind of a thing that's right, like this, and then that is kind of way developed, and then kind of already set a certain level, and up to 7 years old, the imagination and intuition are really strong at the time, and then but they still complex abstract thought are still difficult, not like next 7 to 11, but still there's a problem, and but something is conservation, and something is still there, but even though it's take away, and then some places there, and then it's like conservation is developed, and then there's a concrete operational and concept attached to the concrete situation, and mean that, and we have developed the specific concepts there, right? It is like 7 to 11 years old, and then time, space, and quantity are understood and can be applied, but not as an independent concept. But still, they need to develop more concept. But still, they develop, right? But it's a formal operation. It's like after 11 years old in America, it's like after elementary school, right? And junior high school and college like this, and they develop. They think theoretically, they have a hypothetically and counterfactually. There's a counterfactually, and then they use abstract logic and reasoning, so they can do strategic and strategic planning, and then their concept is more complicated and understand better, right? That is based on the observation and based on the experiment in psychology. So think about when you educate the children, and then how you understand, right? And I don't know whether you raise the children, and then when you go to toy store, and then always there's ages there, right? 2 years old and 3 years old and 5 plus, 10 plus like is there. But parents always go to the toy store and then they think about, oh, my kids are smart, and then even though kids are 3 years old and they plus 5 plus, it means that at least kids need to be a 5 and then can play this toy. But parents say, oh, this is pretty cool, and then I'm gonna teach my kids with this toy. And then, but actually when you buy the toy and they're interested, and then maybe at the age of 5, and then start show the interest, curiosity, like this, and then even the toy company used like a child development, and okay, this stage kids and maybe they can develop this much and they can use that one. But what about in education, church education, Christian education? So we gotta learn, and we needed to be really expert who can use. And then here is another theory. It's like Erickson's psychological stage, and then there is how people develop a social relationship with others. And then this one is kind of gives basic idea, not all the time right, but give us a basic idea about understanding children. And then stages here in A stage, he divided A stage through the human life, and then infants and around up to 18 months from 0, and then there's a basic they are developing trust and mistrust. And then one of the examples is that, and parents kind of have a good relationship and feeding in right time, and then they trust. But if they don't and they don't trust like this, really important thing is in this and then feeling and comfort. What about childhood like 2 and 3, and there is autonomy and then shame and doubt? That is basically toilet training and dressing, and then just think about they developed going to bathroom by themselves, right? They can change dress by themselves like this, and then if they develop it properly, and then they can do by themselves, and if they don't, kind of there's a problem is there. And then what about school age 6 to 11? So code and industry and inferiority, and then how they do the work at school. If they are good, and then they develop the kind of confidence. If they don't, and they develop the inferiority. So it's really how well the kids are doing good at schools and activities. It's really important. What about adolescents? 12 to 18 in junior high school and high school period, and then they try to find who they are, right? And then find out what they want and go for it, and still they cannot identify who they are, and then they are struggling. They don't know what they really want to do in the future like this. And so, and that is also really during the adolescence period, and then really also social relationship is really important, especially between parents and children, right? And they look up the parents, and they look up their peers, and then they see they explore who they are. And then what about young adults, like 19 to 40, and after high school and from the college, and then if they have also it's really good relationship with others, and then they develop the intimacy between the couples and between others, right? If they are not, and then they are isolated, from others. What about middle age, 40 to 65, and then what about? your life is productive, and then you are reproduct something, and you're doing something, and other than that, and then you cannot do anything. Nowadays, people are really depressed. Stagnation is like that. So working and parenthood is a really important activity during the time. So your parents are good, and your working is good, and then maybe promote, and then really productive, and then you have confidence, right? And like this middle age, and then what about maturity is like that, and then so really think about who you are, ego identity, and then maybe my life is really good, and sometimes a lot of regret and despair, like this, and then this age is like reflecting your life, and then just like around, it means that you got just retired from the work, and then reflect your life. It's meaningful. It's really good to you, and good to your family, good to your friends, and then what about how have you influenced others' life like this, right? And here is some questions about think about how you get, and that is psychosocial, and basically how you develop to who you are in the kind of in the context of your daily life. And there is another theory is that how we develop morality, and what's good and bad, right? And there's a Kohlberg theories, and then there is basically he divided in 3 stages, but if you really divide in detail in like not 3, and this is 6 theory stages there, and then we can see really the first stage is like again. This is better, right? Yeah, first stage is obedience and punishment. It's like a infancy. There's no difference between doing the right thing and avoiding the punishment. So how they develop the morality? So because they are not too young. And then around like self-interest at the preschool age, and the interest shifted to the reward rather than the punishment. They wanna follow what is compliment, and sometimes reward from parents and teachers, right? And that's a preschool period. What about school age? Then first, and then conformity, and then interpersonal accord, and then that's the stage is like a good boy girls level. And you are a good boy, you are good girls, right? And efforts made to secure approval and maintain friendly relationship with others. There is a kind of this stage. What about authority and social order? And then there's a school, the orientation toward the fixed rules. The purpose of morality is maintaining the social order. You have to follow the order. Because if you don't, you're gonna be in trouble like this, right? There is a period. And what about, this is mainly elementary school, and then what about teens, the social contract, and then teens, there's a mutual benefit and reciprocity, and then think about myself and think about others. And then morally right and legally right are not always the same. So at that time, usually those teens, utilitarian rules, that made life better for everyone. So try to compromise, and which one is pragmatic, which is useful like this, right? And then around if you pass the age and then college year after college, and then people use the universal principle, the morality-based principle that transcend the mutual benefit, right? And that is moral. That's how they develop the morality. But think about depends on the culture, and then there's a lot of problems, and I don't know. And when I look back, like 10 years ago and 10 years ago, 10 years ago when I came back, when I was moved to America, and then I just 5 years, and then when at the time when you go to Disneyland and then Disneyland, and then you could see the line, and so nobody cut in and they try to wait for their turn. But nowadays, and then here is there, and people are not patient. Try to see how cut in, how kind of go fast way, and then driving too, right? Sometimes there's no rules, and just think about sometimes morality is like it's really relative and depends on the cultures. And think about Korean cultures and Chinese cultures and the Indian cultures and American cultures, how they differ. European culture too, right? And that is a problem that we have. So I think it's but if you think about how you help people and how they live, right, and kind of with morality, and then how we can help them. But as a Christians, and then as a the biblical values and then biblical method is really important. And then one of the issues that how can we integrate this social science with biblical Bible values. That's one way that we need to consider about. And let's go back. There is another, we already talked about cognitive and social relationship, and then we talk about the moral development. And then this is about really was religious development. How can people develop the kind of sense of faith and religion, right? And founders, and then he divided in 6 stages, sorry. So first stage, intuitive and proactive phase, and then like early childhood, and then kids can see that really intuitive means that it's hard to explain, but at this this intuitive productive stage, and we believe that even though they are not, we don't teach, and they kind of have idea about what is good and what is bad, right? And sometimes at the age is like early childhood, and then what's a fantasy and what's a reality, and there is no discernment, right? And it's a same, but they inborn they consciousness know what's good and what's bad, like this in this stage. What about second stage? Mythical or literal faith, and then like middle and late childhood, and they think about more logical and think about a little bit concrete thought, and they think about religion. So there's a stage that they can develop their own thinking. So in this stage, it's like elementaries, and then they literal interpretations of a religious story. God is like, example is God is like a parent figure, like this. And when they read the Bible, they can understand, right? That is stage 2. So still, this stage, and they try to, they understand a little by little, and then through their reading and with their reasoning and their logics. What about stage 3? And so early adolescents, like early teens, and then synthetic and conventional phase. What does it mean that it's based on it's similar to how they developed the cognitions, and then more abstract thought, and think about who God is, right? It's just not a figure like a parent, but they can think about more abstract way. So at this stage, and then they have a conformity to the religious belief of the others, and then that's why sometimes they don't conform, then even though they grow, and then they leave church later or right away. But if they conform to the religious belief of others, and then they stay, right? Maybe they accept the parent faith, and then they accept when they go to church, and then there's pastors there, and then pastors are preaching, and they believe and accept it. That is kind of a stage 3. And then what about stage 4? Individual reflective phase is like a late adolescence, and like around high school years, and then maybe college years, and then they say that for the first time, individuals are capable to take full responsibility for their religious belief. And in-depth exploration of the one's values and religious belief is carried out. So usually we already talk about there was a social development, psychosocial development based on the Erickson, and then at that time they want to know that who they are, right? If they find themselves in high school, and then they continue to grow, like this stage. And then some people are really late, and then they explore themselves during the college year. So when I was in Korea, and then I don't know how much you guys understand about Korean society. Really, the students' life is really focused on studying. So they don't think about themselves who they are. But when they come to college and more time to think about themselves, and they try to exploring who they are. So it's a pretty, the stage 4 is like maybe high school year and junior high college years, like that. What about stage 5? Conjunctive faith, like 40s and like these ages, and then becoming more open to paradox and opposing point of view, and then this from awareness of one's finiteness and limitations, and then people kind of okay, they accept a different point of view, and maybe understand the theology more, and then they try to understand the limitation of human beings, right? In these stages, a little bit broaden in perspective, and then people are really try to talk to others, and then acknowledge the differences. What about the stage 6? universalizing faith and then middle and late adulthood. And then they say this one is a transcending belief system to achieve sense of oneness with all beings. Think about how can and this one is a conflictual event are no longer viewed as a paradox. And how we understand for Christians, that was God's will. And at that time, they don't understand what it means, but look back and then the sequence of life and then kind of figure it out. That's why something's happened. So, so try to understand a little bit, understand the whole situation with the reflection, right? That is last stage. So this is a little bit similar to the social, psychosocial development, but still, that is really gives you some idea about how we plan to education at churches. Here is some idea about if you really adopted very well, and then how we want to be. If you don't really adopt and the situation, how can be like this? And this is explain that one of the examples is the hearings, and then if you stage like 4 individual reflective, and then stage 4, and then could say that emergence of a critical reflection of self and world, and then ability to take personal responsibility, belief, and lifestyle. That is the if you really adopt very well, it's like a stage individualist, that, and then, but if you not adopt very well, and then what happened? And stage 4 is like over reliance on the rational mind to resolve it. Maybe too critical, and then you use your logic, and you maybe reasoning, and then try to pursue the scientific way, and then explain the religion, and then that is kind of happening, maladaptive, and then over relies on the rational mind to resolve the unique cognitive and relation issues. But it's not easy though, right? And then separation of symbolic symbols from the symbolized without recognition of any laws. So, also the Fowler provide, okay, you guys develop your religiosity in this stage, and then, okay, you develop this way. And if you don't develop religiosity in this level, and then how it's going to be, that is a kind of really gives some idea about how we raise the children at church. And then just think about it, nowadays church are really struggling with children's educations, and then when they go to college and high school, and they stop going to church, right? And especially children who leave for college, and then they left home and they don't go to school, church anymore. And think about each stage, how they developed their own religiosity, right? Based on the Fowler's theories, and then it really gives some answers, ideas. And that is a really principle or theory that we need to keep that in mind for the church education and Christian educations. This one is kind of, we adopted from the psychologists, theories. there is another how they develop the religiosities, and then Dr. Scott Peck, and he developed one of developed this theory to explain how they developed the religious faith. And it's similar to the borrowers, but here is basically basically just same. But he really used a different way, divide, simplified and chaotic, antisocial, and then formal institutional and scalar institutional and mystical communal. So he kind of simplified, and he shows that how to develop the religious faith. Maybe you can see your note and then figure it out how it's different. And then here is, let me review. So kind of, I don't know how to say. And here is chaotic, antisocial, and people stuck at this stage so usually self-centered, often find themselves. So find themselves in trouble because of their unprincipled living. That is a chaotic, antisocial people. And then here is another stage, is the formal institutional stage, and at this stage, people rely on some sort of institutions like churches to give give them stability. So there is a kind of formal and institutional stage, and what about skeptical and individual, and think about questioning about what they believe. And then there's a mystical communal this stage, and people who reach this stage start to realize that there is a truth to be found in both previous two stages, and what life can paradoxical and full of mystery we cannot explain. That is one example that how people can develop their faith. So any questions? That is really theoretical stuff, but if you want to teach, and then it's kind of okay, let me think about what theories are out there, and how can we apply, and because already they tested and developed their theories, and then based on their research, and then conform, and then a lot of people are kind of take it as a fact. So that's a theory, and then just start with the small and continue the research is there, and conforming, and develop into the grand theory. So that is one of the example that how people are developing their faith, right? Faith. So we talk about how we develop our cognition, how we develop the social relationship, and how we develop the morality and how we develop the religion. That's a basic idea that we need to think about. That's my opinion. That's why I introduced the basic theories. It's really hectic, huh? So here is some example of how we kind of implant children's education. One of the examples based on the theories, and I got the kind of model from the childrensministry.com and then self-contained classroom, and I mean that just the first model in the there's we how can we divide maybe ages and like when you go to school and then there is age elementary and junior and highs, they are divided by ages. So age specific classroom and then these models, the way to foster a safe and comfortable environment conducive to the kids. And then think about there's a peer group, right? And so each teachers each teacher is required to play different roles, such as a storyteller, game guru, and then so there's a lot of stations there and different teachers there, and then so they used to do it, right? And then volunteers are available, and then you could for these models in the really values tradition and following scope and sequences step by step, and using age appropriate method each children, and maintaining comfort level for parents, teachers, and church leadership. There's one of the self-contained contained classroom models for children's educations. And another model is a large group and small group, and then little bit smaller, not by ages, and then all ages together, and what's the benefit? The benefit to build a relationship and have a corporate worship. And if you go to small churches, and we cannot divide by ages, but especially Sunday school, and but still they like a Sunday school and usually like they put together. I know sometimes, and if they have enough manpower and then teachers, and then they can maybe first, second, and third grade, and fourth, fifth grade, and like this, they can divide a little bit, but still larger than the self-contained class, right? So this one is already resource scared, and then you can use that one, right? And then it's easy to maybe you need to find a room, and then you're gonna do it, and then little bit smaller, bigger size, and then maybe maybe kind of deliver the knowledge to everybody and same things, but sometimes too big means that we don't know how much people are following, right? With you. So theory is this one is kind of classroom is values showmanship and kind of relationship building, and there is a kind of we can use a volunteer according to their gift. There is another model is there, and here is children's church this side, and then just think about adult church, adult worship, but this one is kids version of the church worship with the corporate worship time, skit, and announcement and teaching times, right? maybe Sunday schools, they have their own worship band, and sometimes they have their own things, right? But this one, sometimes the churches are, kids are really involved in worship, but nowadays most worship is teachers are leading. But this is really a good opportunity for children to serve and then part of the worship, and then maybe sometimes like two young girls like elementary, it's not easy. But if you go to youth group and then high school youth group, it's easy to do that, right? That is another model. Here is another rotation Sunday school model, and then nowadays use this one a lot, and like my church, and then they have study about the Word of God and messages there, but they make sure about a Bible study, and there's a craft section, and there is a exercise sections like this, and then student move station to station. That's why, but make sure each station make sure the same thing, right? And then really they kind of they can plug into the message with the different approaches. That is kind of a need hands-on learning, so maybe a lot of material and preparation needed. Here is another model learning center provided. This one is similar to the rotation Sunday schools, and this one is learning centers provide center to for kids engage in various activities related to the Bible stories and then themes in the context of one Sunday. So this is a little bit nowadays most churches, not most, and then a lot of churches are using this one. It's a really focus on the children focused, and then really based on the relations, right? But there is no permanent theme rooms, keep changing and changing. So there is a lot of variety activities there. Another is family worship, and then you can worship with the family. How can we do that? And then there is basically kids worship with their parents, and then nowadays next lectures I might do it, and nowadays they try to put together with so not separate children from parents. So now like most church has children's worship and youth worship and then adult worship. So family come to church and they separate and they go to each service, and then they cannot worship together, right? And so nowadays kind of developed a different way, and then okay, let's worship together as a family, and then from the beginning and to end, and children's and youth and the whole family sitting together, worship together, and a little bit different style of worshiping. Why they worshiping, and but until certain part, and then they stay with the family, and then maybe why they have teaching time and preaching time, and they go to their own room like this. That is a way there, but family worship is like it's not easy. So many churches include churches in the adult worship service, but unless family members help create the worship experience and interact with one another for the kid-friendly environment, and then it's not easy because their attention span is short, and then sometimes others just really annoyed by the children who are kind of playing around, and then that's why it's not easy. But think about how you hand down on your faith to children. Maybe the church is really adult focused, and then maybe it's hard to do that, but sometimes and really focus on the whole church and next generation, and this one is kind of pretty understandable. But my kind of background, and then if you have worship together with the children and adults are really distracted and they really annoyed and they start to complain, right? Yeah, that's a little different. So there are some other way that we can explain about how we can do the worship, but still here is some 6 models there how we can help the children's faith in education ministry. So education is really important. Think about children has a different kind of background, and children have education from school, in school, education at church, maybe Bible studies and maybe worship and kind of learning from someone and modeling someone, and then there's a church's education. So what about home? Maybe they can observe the parents, and then they can learn from modeling the parents, and then pray and devotion. But think about usually a lot of Christian families, and they send them the children to the schools and then church, right? But what is the weakest education is at home, because parents are really busy, and then they cannot make the time available for children, especially for the religious education. And they, especially for the couple working and children after school, and they maybe grandparents are taking care of it, maybe they go after school program, and then it's hard. They are busy, right? That's why it's really hard for the home education. So I read researches of Barna groups, and then they said that more than 60% is they never talk about spiritual stuff, even though they go to church. There's a big hole, it's a loophole of the Christian education. But only less than 10%, like 9%, they talk about the spiritual stuff and pray together. They're supposed to do that, right? So nowadays, and then they will kind of, we're gonna talk about next week, and then if we do that, and then we can prevent our children from exodus when they go to college. It means that they abandon the faith and they left the church. So anyway, so think about how important the family education, home education is. So next week, we're gonna talk about the basic idea about home education, so how we can how children, so how can we build up the family to serve God and to live for the kingdom of God. So always think about education is this one is if your children goes to public school, not the Christian school, their influence is really big. Or sometimes the church and home cannot. The school education is overpowered or overwhelmed the church education and home educations, right? But especially faith, education, and then home is most important based on the Bible. Bible said that in the beginning always At that time, there is no church. And then say the parents, right? And grandparents, who is in charge of their educations, faith educations. But nowadays, church provides a lot of programs, but still, just think about how many hours the kids are spending their time at church. And once a week, or 2-3 hours, that's it. Maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. At least they're not going to spend more than 4 or 5 hours. Right? That's why home education, we can say how important home education is. All right, so we are talking about basic idea about education. So how we could implant theories and philosophies in education and provide basic idea about the different types of Sunday schools. All right, so I hope that you guys have a great week and see you next week. Next week's the last class. Bye.